So, what's the real story with the world today? It's kind of complicated, isn't it? We see incredible progress, but at the same time, there are these massive problems staring us in the face. In this explainer, we're going to use data to try and make sense of it all. We'll look at how things are genuinely better in lots of ways, still pretty awful in others, but also, and this is key, definitely improvable. Okay, let's just start with a hard truth. Something genuinely awful. Every single minute, around 10 children under the age of 5 die somewhere in the world. Just let that sink in. That's about 5 million young lives lost every single year. It's this almost invisible tragedy, and it really highlights the scale of the challenges that we're still up against. So here's how we'll break it down. We'll look at the persistent struggle, then dive into the unprecedented global progress. After that, we'll touch on how things are transforming how we live, acknowledge the challenges that remain, and finally, think about shaping a better future. Basically, we're walking through the awful, the better, and the improvable parts of our world. All right, Section 1, the persistent struggle. Let's first dig into where things are still deeply, deeply challenging. This is the awful piece of the puzzle we talked about. Wow, look at this. This chart really lays bare the connection between how wealthy a country is and whether its children survive. In poorer countries, tragically, far, far more children die young, sometimes over 50 times more than in the richest places. It hammers home the point that where you happen to be born can literally be a matter of life and death. Stark inequalities, right there. Now, let's talk income. This shows how global income is spread out. You can see there's been some shift, some catching up, and the middle income has gone up. But let's be real, billions of people are still living on incredibly low incomes, while the wealth at the very top is just staggering. Global inequality? Yeah, it's still enormous. And then there's gender inequality, specifically in unpaid work. Think housework, childcare. Check this out. In every single country shown here, women do way more of this unpaid labor. In India, it's nearly 10 times as much. This isn't just about fairness. This imbalance really affects women's chances in the paid economy, And, of course, we absolutely cannot talk about awful without mentioning climate change. This map gives you a snapshot of temperature anomalies. Basically, how different the temperature is from a recent average. All that red, those are areas significantly warmer than usual. It just shows how widespread this critical challenge really is, affecting the whole planet. Okay, Section 2, Global Progress. Now let's switch gears a bit, because alongside all that awfulness, there's been some truly incredible progress. Seriously, in many ways, the world is much, much better than it used to be, thanks to some really unprecedented improvements. This chart is just amazing. It tells the story of humanity's great escape from extreme poverty. Go back 2 centuries, and almost everyone lived in what we'd now call extreme poverty. But look what happens as GDP per capita, a measure of average income, starts to climb. Poverty just plummets. Economic growth has been absolutely fundamental to this change. But just how recent is all this growth? Well, take a look at this super long-term view for the UK. For centuries upon centuries, things were basically flat, stagnant. Then wham! Around the time of the Industrial Revolution, sustained growth kicks in and just takes off like a rocket. It completely transformed everything. This hockey stick shape, you see it in lots of places. It's a pretty new phenomenon in human history. And progress isn't just about money. Look at education in South Korea. What a transformation. Back in 1970, there were big gaps, especially for women getting schooling. Fast forward just 40 years to 2010, and not only has the overall level of education shot up massively, but that gender gap has pretty much closed. Incredible change in a relatively short time. And this progress really changes people's daily lives. This shows global access to things we often take for granted: electricity, decent water, proper sanitation, clean fuel for cooking. You can see a clear upward trend. Billions more people have gained access to these essential services just in recent decades. That's huge. Section 3, Transforming Lives. So beyond those core improvements in income, health, and education, there are these other huge shifts happening that are fundamentally changing how we live across the globe. Let's keep rolling with this better theme. Here's a massive change: how many children women are having on average. The global fertility rate has literally halved since the 1960s. It went from about 5 kids per woman down to less than 2.5 today. What's driving this? Well, it's a mix. Things like women getting more education and opportunities, fewer children dying young, and honestly, the rising cost of raising kids. Think about where people live. For almost all of human history, nearly everyone lived in rural areas. This chart shows just how incredibly recent and incredibly fast the move to cities has been, especially over the last couple of centuries. Now, more than half of all people on Earth live in urban areas. That's a total flip. We're also way more connected through trade than ever before. Look at the value of stuff being exported as a percentage of the world's total economic output. It's GDP. It really surged, especially after World War II. Trade grew much faster than the global economy itself. Globalization, right? It's totally reshaped how economies work around the world. Okay, section 4, remaining challenges. So progress is definitely real. But hey, the world isn't perfect, right? Far from it. Now let's get into the improvable part, the areas where we still have a lot of work to do. Let's revisit that gender pay gap, using the US as an example. What's interesting here is how the reasons behind the gap changed between 1980 and 2010. The gap linked to differences in education pretty much vanished. Good news. But the gaps linked to the types of jobs and industries women and men work in actually became more important drivers of the wage difference. And there's still this significant chunk that's unexplained, which many researchers think is related to discrimination. So the problem changed, but it didn't go away. What about happiness? Does having more money make you happier? Well, generally, people in richer countries do report being more satisfied with their lives. You see that upward trend. But look at all that scatter. Some countries are way happier than their income level might predict, others less so. What does this tell us? Income definitely matters, but it's clearly not the only thing that contributes to our well-being. There's more to the story. And what about that trade boom we saw earlier? Does it automatically lead to economic growth for everyone? Well, there seems to be a positive link here too. Countries whose trade grew faster often saw their economies grow faster as well. But, and this is a really important but, the benefits aren't always spread evenly. Who gains and who might lose out from trade? That needs careful thought and management. It's not automatic progress for all, which brings us nicely to our last section, section 5, shaping the future. Because this whole story isn't finished yet, right? We have agency, we have potential. Understanding what's driven change so far gives us clues about how we can make the world even better. So, what really makes a positive difference? Looking across all this data, some key things pop out again and again. Empowering women, especially through education and work. Pushing down child mortality rates even further. Investing in good quality education, especially early on. Making sure people have access to family planning. Driving technological innovation and spreading it around. Putting policies in place to tackle inequality, like social safety nets. And even shifting social norms about what's acceptable or expected. These look like really powerful levers we can pull to build a better future. And we know that targeted efforts can have a massive impact. Take the Perry Preschool program. This was an experiment providing high-quality preschool to kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. And guess what? Years later, those kids showed major long-term benefits. Higher test scores, better graduation rates, better life outcomes overall. It's solid proof that investing early, especially in education, really pays off down the line. So there you have it. The world today, definitely better than it was, still truly awful for far too many people, but absolutely, undeniably improvable. The progress we've seen is real, but it's also uneven and maybe even a bit fragile. Which leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? How do we speed up the better parts while actively pushing back against the awful parts to create a future where everyone, no matter where they're born, truly has the chance to thrive? Something to think about.